Hello guys, lovely to have you back on my channel today. We'll be making this project, this lovely dress you can see on the screen. That's what we're going to be making today. I have a video on my channel where I made a jacket pattern or a jacket with the notched collar and lapel, so it's just going to be similar to what we're going to be doing today. So as usual, I've marked my dimensions I'll be working with. Okay, I've just transferred my bodice pattern into this fresh pattern paper. Okay, and I've just extended it to create the full dress, as you can see, right? So let me just quickly explain how I arrived at this pattern. This is the shoulder line, and on this shoulder line I left out about 5 inches before I marked the shoulder line. This will help me to create my collar. Okay, and at the center front as well I left out 3 inches, which will also help me to create my lapel, right? So I just started the bodice pattern at this point. Okay, so that's my shoulder slant, which I slanted by 1 inch, and that's the neckline. Here is my armhole, and this is the upper chest measurement. That's the bust line. This is my waistline, and that's the hip line. Okay, and I marked the full length of the dress, and I added 1.5 inch for my hemming allowance. 1.5 inch for my hemming allowance. So that's what I've marked at that point. Okay, so to mark the full length of the dress, I applied my hip circumference divided by 4 on the hip line. Then when I got to the bottom, I took away 1.5 inch. So my hip line, my hip circumference is 44, divided by 4 is 11 inches. So I applied 11 inches here. So coming to the bottom, I did 11 inches minus 1.5, okay, which is 9.5 inches. That's what I marked at this point to create a curve on that point. Okay, now we're going to go straight ahead to create the pattern for this jacket dress or this blazer dress. Okay, and it's pretty easy to do that. First, we need to determine our break point. If you saw my video of the jackets pattern drafting, I did my break points on 1 inch above the waistline. I encourage you to have a look at that video. The link will be in description. Okay, so for this one, we're going to make our break points at the under bust. So what I'm going to do is I'll measure about 1 inch or 1.5, okay, whichever works for you. So I'll just leave it as 1 inch. So I'm measuring 1 inch below my bust line, and that will be my break point for this particular pattern. Okay, so we're going to extend our neckline by 2 inches. You can extend by less than 2 or more than 2. It depends on the size of the lapel you want. Okay, if you want your lapel to be very wide or not so wide, you just determine how you want, but 2 inches is just perfect for me. Okay, and that's what I'll be working with today. So once I've marked my 2 inches, I'll just go ahead to extend my neckline to that point I marked. Okay, so that's my 2 inches, and I've extended neckline. Now I'm going to link that point up to my break point. So for my break point is 1 inch below the bust line. Okay, so I'm linking this up to that break point, and that's where my lapel will fall to. Now we're going to go ahead and create our collar. To create the collar, the first thing to do is to measure your back neckline. Okay, because that's the point your collar is going to sit on. So you're going to measure along this back neckline. Okay, measuring mine, I got 4 inches, so I'm going to apply that 4 inches on the neckline, okay, to create the collar. So I've applied 4 inches here, right? Since you know the collar is curved, we're going to curve this in by ½ inch. Okay, so to create our new collar. And when we curve that, we're going to just measure 0.25 from the actual neckline inwards a little bit, so that we're going to curve that point and blend it into the actual neckline. I explained all this on my jacket pattern drafting. You can just have a look at it. It will give you a basic idea of what I'm doing here. Okay, so once you've done that, we'll now go ahead and create our notch. So I'm creating 1 inch on that point, and I'm going up as well by 1 inch just to create our notch on the collar. Okay, so I'll square that point. Then you now link it up to the collar. Okay, so this collar I'm going to use 2.5 inches. You can make it more than that if you wish. Okay, so I'm using 2.5, and I'm going to link that up to the collar. Right, so connect that point. So now the collar is created and our lapel is also created. Okay, so now what we're going to do next is to create our jacket or the blazer. You know, if you look at this dress very well, you see that one side has the blazer part while the other side has just a dress running, and the dress has the lapel as well as the collar. Okay, so the part that has the jacket, we're going to create it now. Okay, and to do that we'll have to measure about 2 inches below our hip line. That's the point we want our jacket to stop. Okay, for the jacket pattern I did initially, I did 1 inch for my button extension. Okay, but this time we're going to do 2.5. The reason is that this one is overlap. Okay, if you look at it very well, it overlaps to the other side, so it has to be extended beyond just 1 inch button allowance. Okay, and once I've marked my 2.5 inch overlap, we need to curve from this break point. Okay, we need to curve into this point, then we'll now curve to our at the bottom of the jacket. Okay, right, so next up we're going to create our shoulder darts. Okay, and to create the shoulder darts, we'll measure the midpoint of our shoulder. We have 5 inches on this shoulder line, so we'll measure the midpoint, which is 2.5. So from that 2.5 we'll measure ½ inch to the right and ½ inch to the left. So we're going to replace this 1 inch on the shoulder line as well. Okay, we'll connect it back to the armhole that we already have on that point. Okay, I hope this makes sense. So because we took out the darts from there, we have to always replace our dart on that point. Okay, so now we'll just link that point up to our bust line. Then we'll go ahead and create our darts. Okay, for our darts, we're measuring ½ inch to the right and ½ inch to the left. Okay, so we'll also create our darts. Right, so we've created our jacket pattern. So now we have to cut out our jacket pattern, but before we cut this out, we need to trace out this jacket on another piece of pattern paper, because you know we're using this same pattern for our dress at the same time for the other side of the dress that has the lapel and the overlap as well. Do you understand what I mean? Okay, so what we're going to do is to trace out the jacket pattern first. Okay, then we're going to now cut the dress. Right, so to cut the dress part, we're going to just measure ½ inch. We'll just measure ½ inch above the waistline, and this will be for our seam allowance. Okay, so we'll just create that point, then we're going to square it up from the start to finish on the waistline. So right, I've now traced my jacket pattern, okay, into my tracing paper. So I'll just have to cut this part out while retaining my main pattern. Okay, so once you've cut out that point, okay, we just stick them back together, because we're going to use this same pattern to create our bodice for the dress. Okay, so we'll just stick it back on. with this, we're done with this pattern. You can transfer into your tracing paper or into a lighter pattern paper, depends on what you want. Okay, so you can still use this to cut on your main fabric, but this is just what you're using as template on your main fabric. So now we're going to work on the jacket. Okay, the jacket bit that we traced out, we'll also cut it out the way we've done on the main dress. So that's our side front, and this is our center front on the jacket. Okay. Now, to create that fullness you can see on the button line, we have to slash and spread this point. Okay, we'll just slash this point up and spread it just to create some fullness. Right, so that's it. We'll cut that on our main fabric. That's it for the jacket. So this is what the pattern will look like when you finished. Okay, we'll now place that point here. We're going to overlap on that point. Okay, then this one will be the other side of it. So this is exactly what it will look like, right? Then for the sleeves, we're going to use our two-piece sleeve that we also drafted. You know, I'll link that video in the description of this one as well. So we're using the two-piece sleeve for this, and this will be the body of the dress, and this will be our jacket pattern. It's pretty easy. Then for the back, it's just a basic dress pattern. So then we're going to cut on fabric, and let me show you what it looks like. This is the top pattern. I cut it exactly the way the pattern looks with the slashed parts, okay, because there will be fullness on that point. Okay? And this is my side front. Okay, that's my side front, and I've cut one piece of the main fabric and one piece of the lining piece, with my lining piece being 1 inch shorter than the main fabric. Okay, and I've cut two pieces of this back pattern for both sides of the back. Okay, and I've also cut two pieces of my lining piece for the back pattern. So that's it for the back. So for our sleeve pattern, I've added 1 inch allowance on the hem of the sleeve. Okay, so I've cut two pieces of, this is the under sleeve, and that's two pieces of the lining piece and two pieces of the main fabric. Then for the top sleeve, I've also added 1 inch on the hem, and I've cut two pieces of the main fabric and two pieces of the lining piece, with the lining piece being 1 inch shorter than the main fabric. Okay, so that's it. Then this is our collar pattern. Okay, that's the collar, and we've cut on fold at this point. Okay, so this is what the collar looks like, right, when you cut on fold. So this is one part of it, right? So I've cut that part on fold, and it looks exactly like this. So I've added half inch all round the collar pattern. Then I've cut this midpoint on fold. So this is our main front pattern. Now that is it. So I've just transferred these darts from the left to the right, okay, so that we have it exactly how it is on the fabric. And I've also imputed those darts on my fabric just to make it easy for me to sew. And I've just cut one piece of this main fabric, okay, and I've also cut one piece of the lining piece. For my lining, I've cut it halfway to the waistline, okay, and I've folded out my hemming allowance and allowed the lining to run through to the waistline. Okay, then for the top bit, I've cut my facing. So that's the facing for it, right? I cut the facing with the main fabric, and that's the other side of my facing. Okay, so you can also use a lining, ordinary lining for this point, but since I have so much fabric to play with, I decided to use my fabric for this point, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so what matters is this point that comes out on the lapel. It has to be on the main fabric, so that by the time you sew and flip it over, you will still have your main fabric revealing on the other side of the lapel. So I ironed on my interfacing on both sides, okay, of the main fabric, so that when I sew and turn my lapel, I'll have it firm and nice. So that's just all for the pattern and all I've cut. Next will be the sewing of this particular dress. Okay, we'll make the dress, but that will be in my next video. I will hope to see you in that video. Okay, bye.